All right, hello everyone. My name is Matt. I'm a therapist in private practice and a group practice owner. I make a lot of videos like this. No, I don't like it. Hi everyone. Welcome back. Today we're talking about Google My Business for therapists, especially for those of you who are doing all virtual practices. This is going to be really helpful for you. We're going to talk about how to create and set up the profile so that it actually works. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Google makes it really easy to set up the Google My Business profile, but there's a certain way you need to do it, especially if you're doing all virtual care, to make sure that it's done properly within the guidelines of the Google My Business guide, whatever that is. There's like certain rules they have for businesses and operating a Google My Business profile that you want to follow to make sure that it actually works for you. If you don't follow it, it might work in the beginning, but then kind of get you into trouble later on, and maybe they won't even show it to people. It won't even pop up on results if you don't follow the guide. So today, I'm going to walk you through the right way to do it, correct any misinformation that's out there, and just give you what you need to know about Google My Business as a therapist. And actually, in these videos, what I'm going to start to do, if you've been around for a while on the channel, you've noticed a lot of the videos are like super curated. I spend a lot of time editing them, cutting out different kind of like silences or whatever it might be. But you know, they're highly edited, not in the fact they're highly edited. Even now, like I'm not going to cut that out. Like this mistake right here, it's going to stay. All right. And so I'm doing more of a raw approach to some of my videos. Number one, this gives you kind of like a sneak peek into what it's really like to make videos and to run a private practice. And then number two, I don't have that much time to be editing all these videos and chopping all these pieces out. All that to be said, what I'm actually going to do for you today is I'm going to actually run the full webinar that I created for my consultation group as part of this video. So if you're not a part of that group, you're gonna get a sneak peek into what kind of content I post in that group. This is a consultation group for people looking to grow in their private practices, whether it be solo or group. I interact with people directly inside of that group. I respond to every question. I post webinars and all sorts of things. And so that's actually what you're gonna get today. You're gonna get the webinar of the Google My Business. You're gonna get see, I would have cut all that out in old videos, but what you're going to get is my webinar about Google My Business. All right. So I'm going to run that in just a second. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe down below. Hit the thumbs up button on this video. You don't have to though, only if you want to. All right. Without further ado, here is the webinar on the Google My Business. All right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to hop on and do a real quick introductory webinar to Google My Business. I don't know if you've heard of this before. Google My Business is essentially a profile that you set up for your business. And I'm going to walk through how we actually set this up and why you might want to. But just to give you kind of just a brief background on what Google My Business is, and actually to help you think about why you might want it, because I actually think it's really helpful. Let's just kind of start with that. So Google My Business is essentially a profile that you create for your private practice, your business, right? And then this profile is going to show up on Google search results in local areas where your practice is located. So let me just give you an example. I do therapy in New York City in a particular neighborhood. I am all virtual, but I do have a rental space that I can use when I need to, which kind of puts my practice in a particular physical location. And we'll talk about locations in a minute and addresses. But I do have a particular area in New York City where my practice is. So if someone in that area types into Google, DBT therapy near me, you know, that map pops up. This often pops up when you're looking for a restaurant, right? I don't know, search for Italian food near me. That map pops up and then all the restaurants kind of pop up. Those are Google My Business profiles, right? So if someone searches DBT therapy near me in my neighborhood or where I'm located, I want my practice to show up, and it's going to show up through my business, the Google My Business profile. So to be able to create that profile for free and to show up on Google search results in a local area is going to be huge for getting new referrals, for getting more eyes on your practice. It's really going to be a tremendous help. So I'm a big proponent of Google My Business. I was always scared of it because of the reviews. We'll talk about that in just a second. But as I've done more research and I've been learning a bit more about marketing, Google My Business is a free asset that you might want to consider because it's going to get you showing up on Google search results. All right. Now that being said, what I have a Google My Business profile, which I'm going to show you in a second, but I want to show you how you can start your own if you want to. Now, what you can do is just go simply type in Google My Business in Google, and it will pop up with kind of the sign up page. Okay. And this is what the sign up page is going to look like. Now, I'm not actually going to create a business, but I want to show you these first 2 steps because I think it's crucial. Right, so it's going to ask you a pretty simple question. So business name, let's just make this up for today. Let's call it Matt's Therapy. All right, so yeah, great. So there's no existing business. We're just going to type, we're going to put that in here. Now you want this to be your actual business name. All right, so don't mix up something new. Don't put anything that's not true on here, but your business, like whatever it's called, make sure that's the business name. All right. Then it's going to have you select a category. For the most part, it's going to pre-populate things. I'm a clinical social worker. I don't actually, is that on here? I can't spell either. Let's see, clinical social worker. No. But I think for the most part, as a therapist, they have therapists. I think they might have psychotherapist, and that's it. Yeah. So I think psychotherapist is pretty much what we're limited to. You can go ahead and search that, but it's not something, it's a free form. You actually have to kind of choose their category. All right. So you do that. It's pretty simple. We're going to click next. Okay. This next one says, do you want to add a location customers can visit, like a store or an office? Now, this is going to be the crucial aspect. Okay. Now, a lot of people will tell you that if you're an all virtual practice, which a lot of us are, then you're going to put no. Okay. And then what this basically means, if you put no, I don't have a practice area or a location, like an office, what you're basically telling Google is that you are a business that provides services to people in their community. For example, if you're a plumber, right, you might not have a location where people come, but you actually go out to serve a particular neighborhood and go to those homes. That would be like a service. Now, some people will say as a therapist, you can do that. You can choose that. Now, you might get away with that for a little while. But Google, from what I've been learning and what people have been sharing with me, that Google is getting a bit more strict. And when they think about therapists, although virtual care is possible and it's nothing wrong with virtual care, Google My Business is really trying to protect local brick and mortar businesses. So although you might be able to say, no, I'm a service area, that might not work. Google might actually find out that you don't qualify to be a service area. We can dig deep into their kind of like fine print, but if you read what they define as like a business that serves a local area, therapy or therapists don't fall under that. So it's possible that if Google does their research, which they actually will, they'll do some research into your business to make sure it's legit, and they find that you're not actually a business that falls under that service area type business, then your business profile won't work. And we don't want that to happen. So we do. And so from my understanding, Google My Business treats therapists as local businesses with an office. They really want you, for the purpose of Google My Business, to have an office location. Now, don't get discouraged right away. I know that an office location is out of reach for many people, especially if you live in a big city. It's like exorbitantly expensive, right? And for a lot of us, not needing to have an office is the reason why we started in the first place. So if you don't already have an office, this is where we want to get creative in our problem solving, right? So how can we get a legitimate address? Now, a couple things to know is that a PO box will never work. A PO box has never been a workable type of address for really anything in your small business or private practice, right? So that's out of question already. The other thing people have tried is what's called a virtual office, right? So something like iPostal 1. I use this really early on. This gives you a legitimate address. So like it might give you, 123 Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, right? There's no PO box, legitimate address, but that address is actually pointing to like a Staples or some sort of store like that where they have like actual mailboxes, but it's not a place where you can actually conduct therapy. Now, I have heard that people are able to use that and it sometimes works, but Google is doing its research. And if Google finds out that you're not a legitimate location where you can see clients, it will say no. It'll basically shut the profile. Your Google business profile will not work. So you can't really, you don't want to do damage to your profile, your account, right? You don't want to be like, shadow banned basically to the bottom of Google because you're trying to like skirt their rules that they do try to enforce. So if you want a really good Google My Business profile, we do have to figure out how do we get a legitimate address. So a couple things to keep in mind. There are a lot of co-working spaces that will allow you to do what I consider like ad hoc rentals, right? So if you search for like co-working space for therapists, you'll find different places who cater to therapists that allow you to rent maybe per hour or rent as needed. And additionally, sometimes you have to email them, but you can ask them, can I use this as a business address? Sometimes they say yes. Sometimes they say, oh yeah, that's part of the package. But you can actually find fairly affordable, sometimes even free places where you can rent as needed and then actually use the address, right, as a business address. And it's legitimate. Like if Google was to say, hey, can you see clients here? Can you do it? You would be able to like book a time, go to the office and say, yeah, I can, right? So you want to kind of think about that. My big suggestion is look for co-working spaces that cater to the therapist. If you can't find that, you can think about, other providers are sometimes willing to collaborate. So maybe there's, already a group of therapists who have an office space near you. They might be willing to, take a little bit of a fee for you to use their office address as an address. So there's all sorts of ways you can do this. So don't just get discouraged because you don't have a full-time office. Start thinking about that. Start with the co-working one. And then you can also search for like business offices, virtual addresses. Google that for your local area, and I'm sure you'll find some sort of solution. All right. But this is a big hurdle. Don't try to skirt it. Don't try to like cheat the system. Because one thing I've heard that Google is also doing, let's say you decide, you know what, I don't have an office. I'm not going to look. I'm just going to use my virtual office, my iPostal one. Google is actually sometimes calling and asking you to show them the office space, right? So you obviously can't be standing in the middle of Staples and showing them that this is where you see clients, right? So again, some people get away with it for a little while, but when it doesn't work, it can really do some damage to the Google My Business profile, okay? So this is really important to know. So when you are a therapist, you're gonna wanna choose yes to adding a location, all right? So we're gonna click next. And then it's going to ask you to add the address. All right, so we just went through this. I think that's the biggest thing. That was something no one told me. I was really caught off guard. So I went to sign up and then I realized, oh my gosh, I need an address. Like, how do I get this? I went back to the drawing board and again, searched kind of co-working spaces, asked around about the use of an actual office if I needed it. And then also, can I use this as an actual address on my forms and my documentation? So I was able to find that. All right, so definitely do some searching there. Once you get that address, you can go ahead and put it in right here, and then you'll push next. Now, I already made the business profile, so basically once you kind of go through this step, you're gonna have a business profile, and it's gonna look something like this. So you see at the top here, you're gonna notice, this is my practice. If you don't know, it's called Progress, PRGRS. And so once I logged in, this was blank, but I had all these buttons where you see edit profile, read reviews, messages, add photo, performance, all that. And you click this down button here. And basically these are all of the criteria. This is the Google My Business profile. So what you would do is you would take some time and you would begin editing the profile. It's just like any other profile you've done on Alma or Psychology Today. So for example, if you click edit profile, it's going to pop this up. It's going to, these are questions you can definitely answer. Description, opening date, contacts, all the stuff you already have, right? So you can go ahead and update all of this stuff once you're in here. Okay, so the key to Google My Business though is to make sure it's as complete as possible. So once you're logged in, go one by one down the lines here and fill it out as much as you can. Now, not everything's going to apply, right? So products, most therapists aren't selling physical goods, so you would obviously not do that. But whatever applies to you, you would go ahead and you would fill it all out. That way Google sees that this is a full profile and you're more likely to show up on Google search results. All right. Now, the other thing that I had a really hard time with was the photo section. So because you are a brick and mortar business, you're saying that you have an office space where you could potentially see clients. Now, let me pause for a second. Just because you have the potential to see clients in person doesn't mean you have to, right? You can still be virtual, right? You can still see your clients virtually. But because now we're setting up a Google My Business, we're saying that I'm located in this area. This is where I am able to see clients in person if needed. we're going to need some photos of that space, right? So these need to be legitimate. That's why the actual office space needs to be somewhere you could actually go and see a client, right? So this is pictures of my office space if I needed to. I could go in here and I can see a client in person. But Google wanted pictures of like the actual space. I uploaded these, they verified them. Because the first ones are too blurry, they denied it. I had to go back and get clearer photos. But you're going to need actual photos of the place, okay? So again, another roadblock that I came across that I want you to at least know about. And then that's it. I only have 2 photos really, and I have my logo on there. So I think the big things about Google My Business people don't know about are the address and then the photos. But again, once you have that squared away, you then just go ahead and fill all this out, okay? And now when someone types in DBT therapy near me or ADHD therapy near me, this business profile, my PRGRS Therapy, actually shows up on the Google map, right? And this is really great because then more people will call me for services. And this was all free, right? It just took some time and energy to kind of get it built out. So I want to encourage you guys to fill this out, to do this. Now, a couple of things that might scare people or kind of deter them is one thing is the reviews. So if you're not a provider who's been on ZocDoc or on Google and you don't have any reviews yet, it can be kind of scary. We always hear the nightmare stories about like the 1-star review or whatever. Now, although this is a real thing, we always have the potential to get a bad review. Sometimes it's out of our control. Don't let this deter you from signing up for things like this because part of the game we play now as people who are marketing a business is the game of reviews, right? And oftentimes we think about the worst case scenario, right? But we also don't think about all the great things that can happen from a good review, right? And then not to mention a really good review and a really bad review can even each other out over time. And then there's all sorts of strategies to mitigate reviews. But I think most of us are driven by fear. We're like, oh, I don't want that bad review, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sign up for any profile I can get reviewed on. But reviews are part of the game, like a real crucial part, right? So don't let that deter you. I mean, have you ever looked for a restaurant and you found one that had 0 reviews? You sometimes go to the next one that has reviews so you can read about people's experiences. So reviews are just part of it, right? We can overcome our fear. We can appreciate the reality that a bad review is not good. At the same time, there's ways to overcome that, to mitigate that. So don't let that stop you, okay? But this is a brief tutorial on Google My Business. I hope this inspires you to start one yourself. I think this was enough information to at least help you get started, really start figuring out where you can, have a potential address that's legitimate, and then get your Google My Business profile all fired up. I think this is something that can really take your practice to another level. Is this going to be, the surefire way of like filling up your practice? No. But is it going to help? Absolutely. I absolutely think so. You might get more calls, more emails, and this is all part of like Google marketing, right? And this is the free part. Like you can do this for free. So why wouldn't you? All right. As always, this probably generates more questions. If it does, please leave a comment or whatever. Contact me in the group. I'm happy to respond for follow-up questions, anything you're curious about. But yeah, this is Google My Business. And absolutely, I look forward to seeing you next time. Anyway, that was the webinar. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you learned something. At the very least, I hope it inspires you to really thrive in your private practice. And from a very practical level, I hope that this helps you grow your practice. It should be a really useful tool that's also free. All right. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.